How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Infinite Sports. I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder. The NFL playoffs are upon us, and today I will be giving you my predictions for the playoffs, how I see the wild card round going, divisional round, championship games, and then the Super Bowl, my Super Bowl prediction. Now, it has to be an updated Super Bowl prediction slightly because one of the teams that I had representing their respective conference in the Super Bowl is not in the playoffs, and that's the Baltimore Ravens. So we're gonna have to tweak that a little bit. So got two games tomorrow, or whenever you're watching this. We got two games on Saturday, starting off with the Panthers and the Rams, which is a rematch from earlier this season. The Panthers, pulled off the upset, and then you got that game will be on Fox, and then you have the Packers and the Bears going at it Saturday night on Amazon Prime. So you better make sure you have Prime to watch that a rematch, the grudge match, if you will, because now this is the third meeting between these two teams. Both teams splitting earlier in the season, well, late in the season, but they played each other like twice in 3 weeks, I think. But that is the second matchup for Saturday. You got a triple header on Sunday, starting off with probably the best game of the weekend. Jags Bills down in Duval County. And then you have the 49ers and the Eagles, a rematch of the NFC Championship game from a few years ago. And then on Sunday Night Football, you got Drake May making his playoff debut. New England Patriots back in the playoffs again, back at Gillette Stadium going up against the LA Chargers, Justin Herbert and Jim Harbaugh. And then on Monday night, you got the Pittsburgh Steelers against the Houston Texans at Acrisure Stadium. After that wild game between the Ravens and the Steelers in the playoffs once again, 10-7. Texans have been a playoff team the last couple of years. C.J. Stroud looking for his third playoff victory. So some interesting games this weekend. Looking forward to it. Actually, before we get into that, I did want to bring this up. We brought up Jim Harbaugh. John Harbaugh, the Ravens let him go, so he is going to be. We'll discuss more about that next week, but that has happened. Also, Mike McDaniel is out in Miami, so it looked like his job might be secured after the Dolphins did let go of their general manager, but they kept him around, and the Dolphins actually, played better down the stretch. Um, won a couple games, or actually no, they won one game with Quinn Ewers after they benched Tua, but they're starting off fresh now. So no Mike McDaniel, but yeah, John Harbaugh. Um, there was some reports out there that he was let go because he wanted to keep the offensive coordinator, but also there were some reports that kind of lost the locker room, and then other reports that he had guys that were very emotional about him being let go. So, but John Harbaugh is going to be a hot commodity in the offseason, and the team is going to, whatever team ends up with him, they're going to get a good coach. The Giants are a potential suitor. The Dolphins could be one. The Falcons. There are teams that he's going to have options. So you also have Kevin Stefanski. That is another potential candidate for some of these teams after being let go by the Browns. You got Mike McCarthy out there, so and whenever coordinators shake loose from their teams. So it's going to be interesting, but we'll talk more about that next week. Let's get into the bracket. So we'll go game by game, day by day. So we'll start off with the Rams and the Panthers. So the Panthers did upset the Rams earlier this season. They forced Matthew Stafford into some turnovers. Bryce Young had that go-ahead touchdown pass to Tetairoa McMillan on fourth down. The Panthers had a strip sack fumble of Matthew Stafford to effectively end the game. Panthers pulled off the upset there. And the Panthers have pulled off some upsets this year. And then they've lost some games where you kind of scratch your head. The Saints played better down the stretch, but that's a team, for example. The Saints went in there and knocked them off on the road. The Panthers went on the road against the Packers in Lambeau. They knocked them off. And then you had the upset against the Rams. So they've beaten good teams. They've lost to bad teams. And they somehow have found a way to make the postseason. Cam Newton is going to be there. I think Luke Kuechly is also going to be there. So that place is going to be nuts. being back in the postseason once again. Now, I think this game is going to go differently. I think that the Rams, they're going to be prepared for this game. They're going to want to avenge that loss, obviously. And I think this game is going to go to much differently than the first meeting between these two teams. I think the Rams are going to assert their dominance. Matthew Stafford's going to have a good game. He's going to have his full arsenal of weapons back. You got Tyler Higbee back now. Devontae Adams is back, and he was having a great year before he got hurt. All his touchdown receptions. The Rams definitely have missed him as they've kind of scuffled a little bit as of late. So, listen, I like the Rams to win this game. The line is pretty big. It's plus 10.5 right now, at least last time I checked. I think the Rams win comfortably in this game. But credit to the Panthers for making it to the postseason. This is definitely a stepping stone for them, but I just look at the Rams as the better team. I don't see the Rams losing to this team twice, and that would be quite something if that does happen. But I do think with the Rams now getting some of their other guys back, and Matthew Stafford had a bounce-back game against the Cardinals last week after the Rams lost to the Falcons the week before. I think the Rams are going to get the win here, so I'm going to take the Rams to win the first playoff game of this weekend. Then we go to the nightcapper. Grudge match between the Packers and the Bears at Soldier Field. Last time these two teams met, Caleb Williams threw an incredible pass to DJ Moore, who made an incredible catch for the game-winning touchdown in overtime, and the Bears won that game. It was a miracle win, recovered an onside kick, and you had Jordan Love go out earlier in the contest. Both teams won a game this year against each other. They split the season series, so like I said, this is the grudge match. And the Packers coming in, Jordan Love making his return. Hasn't played since that Bears game when he was concussed, so they're going to be getting him back. I saw that Dontavian Wicks is going to be out for this game. And look, Packers, they're not 100% coming in. Obviously they've been without Tucker Kraft, Michael Parsons. They've been without now for almost a month already, which is crazy to think about that. But they haven't been playing well as of late. They've kind of been on a little slide. They've lost their last 3 games, so they're going to want to get back in the win column. For the Bears, they also have lost their last couple games. They lost that shootout with the 49ers, and then they lost this past week against the Lions. Lions finished over 500. So, one of their losing streaks is going to come to an end. And look, for me, look, the Packers, they're the 7th seed, but to me, they're better than a 7th seed. And I know a lot of people are kind of down on them because of how they've played, but I still think this is a good Packers team. They should have swept the season series with the Bears. The defense was shutting down Caleb Williams in that offense for most of the game until the fourth quarter and overtime. And I think, Jordan Love playing in this game, Packers, they're the only 7th seed to knock off a 2 seed. And they did it a couple years ago against the Cowboys. I'm going to pick them to do it again. I'm going to pick them as a 7th seed to knock off the 2 seed here with the Bears. Because like I said, I just think they've played better than the Bears in both of these games. They should have swept them. Now, that does not mean that we get to Saturday and the Bears, they come out firing on all cylinders. Because Caleb Williams had a great year. Ben Johnson has turned this team around. And you got to worry about the Bears' rushing attack, and they could beat you different ways. Colston Loveland had a very good game against the Lions. But I think, we could see a potential shootout here. Or, I do think the Packers are the better defense of the two. I think the Packers kind of, keep this offense at bay. And, Jordan Love in this offense starts to get into a rhythm. And they got all their pass catchers outside of Dontavian Wicks and Tucker Kraft, like I said. But Josh Jacobs also, he spoke recently. He said this is the healthiest he's been in weeks because he's been dealing with a bit of a knee issue. So that's going to be very important. Running games are going to be very important, especially when the temperature drops. So I think Josh Jacobs is going to have a key role in this game. And, for the Packers, for me, it's all about balance too. You don't want to be heavily relying upon one aspect of your offense because that's kind of what happened last year in the playoff game against the Eagles. And really, all of last year just felt like, Josh Jacobs, that's who they were feeding. Because, the passing game kind of struggled, but you got Christian Watson, who's been playing really good ball, possibly the best football of his career since coming back from injury. So, Love and Watson are going to want to, get things started quickly. Romeo Doubs had a touchdown the last time these two teams met. So, yeah, for the Packers, be balanced on offense, and Jordan Love has won playoff games before. This is Caleb Williams' first playoff game, so we'll see how. There's a lot of firsts for certain players, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm leaning towards the Packers here. I think it's going to be a close game. I think this could set up for another dramatic finish because both games, even the game at Lambeau, Caleb Williams threw a interception at the end of the game. Keyshawn Nixon picked him off in the end zone, and the Packers won that game 28-21. So these games have been close, and I anticipate that that's going to be the case here. So I'm going to take the Packers, close game here, to move on. So then we move on to Sunday. First game of the day, Bills-Jags. I got to tell you, I was going back and forth with this game all week. Because to me, and I'm comfortable in saying this, I think that the winner of this game is going to go to the Super Bowl. The winner of this game is going to go to the Super Bowl. The Jags right now are the hottest team in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence is playing possibly his best football of his career. Actually, not possibly. He is playing the best football of his career. He has played great over the last month and a half or so. And the Jags are coming in hot. They got a ton of weapons. I mean, guys that aren't household names. Parker Washington, Brenton Strange. Brian Thomas Jr. hasn't had a big year, but he's a threat. The Jacoby Myers trade really paid dividends for this team. Travis Etienne has bounced back. This defense, I can't talk about this defense enough because this is one of the reasons why I didn't think the Jags were going to be very good is because of that defense. Well, that defense takes the ball away. That defense has been a surprise this year. This team has been a surprise this year. And credit to Liam Cohen. And they're going to be hosting a playoff game. The Jags and the Bills, they played each other in the playoffs. That was back during the abridged Saxonville era, if you even want to call it an era. It was short-lived. But you had Tyrod Taylor and Blake Bortles as the two starting quarterbacks. Now you got Trevor Lawrence and Josh Allen. So how about that? And the Bills are coming in. They are one of the more experienced teams in the postseason. And with Josh Allen, look, is this going to be the year that the Bills finally make it? There's no Lamar Jackson, no Joe Burrow, and especially no Patrick Mahomes. Okay, but if you look at this Bills team, this is not the best Bills team of the Josh Allen era. Now, Josh Allen's probably playing the best football of his career, but he's had better Bills teams in the past. And, you know that Josh Allen is going to do his thing. James Cook is the second best offensive weapon on this offense behind Josh Allen. But like I said earlier in the week, who is going to be the pass catcher that steps up? Because, they don't have Stephon Diggs, and they have Gabe Davis, but is he going to score 4 touchdowns in a playoff game? I don't think so. You got Khalil Shakir, you got Joshua Palmer. Is Keon Coleman going to be a factor, or are the Bills just done with him because he was playing with the backups last week? I think Dalton Kincaid, I think, should be playing in this game. I could double check on that. But it's going to be about who steps up when it comes to the pass catchers, and also what is this defense going to do? Okay, because this defense, again, there's been better Bills defenses in the past. Now, we've seen the Bills defense step up in key situations. Like, go back to when they played the Patriots and they were down 21-0. The Bills defense stepped up, got stops. The Bills got themselves back in the game. All right, so I just saw Dalton Kincaid is good to go because I know he was a little banged up. So that's big. This Bills defense can step up when it has to. But are they going to be able to do that against, again, one of the hottest teams in the NFL? Or is Josh Allen going to have to do what he does and keep up with the pace of the Jags offense? We will find out on Sunday. But yeah, this is a very tough game to pick. Again, I was going back and forth with it all week, but I'm going to do it. I am going to take the Buffalo Bills to win this game here. I mean, this has to be the year, right? This has to be the year that they go on a run and go all the way to the Super Bowl. So I'm gonna say it's gonna be the Bills. And I think this could be a very high scoring game. I think it's gonna be very exciting with these two quarterbacks, especially. Trevor Lawrence does have a playoff win under his belt, that comeback win against the Chargers. And I expect him to continue to play well in this game. I mean, let's not forget, last time these two teams met, you know, overall, the Bills destroyed them on Monday night in Buffalo. But again, it's a different team. It's a different Jags team. And yeah, no, it's going to be an exciting game. This could be the game of the weekend, but I am going to side with Josh Allen and the Bills, and they win a close one here. But I think Josh Allen is going to have to be Superman in this game because, I mean, that Jags offense, it's rolling. And we'll see now how it translates into the postseason, but he's going to have to bring his A game, and he always does in January. I mean, even the games that he loses to the Chiefs, he brings his A game. It's just he's on the short end every time, but he doesn't have the Chiefs this time around. So let's see. And if the Bills don't get the win here, you could maybe consider a coaching change. Even I don't know. That's kind of how I see it right now. But like I said, I'm gonna take the Bills in a close one here. So then we got the middle game. To me, and I don't want to be disrespectful to the 49ers, but I think this is, to me, one of the easier games to pick. Now, you're probably saying why. The Eagles' offense hasn't been great for a while now. But to me, I feel like the Eagles have the recipe for success in this game. Okay, we've kind of seen the 49ers defense, especially really the last 2 weeks, even though the Seahawks didn't put up a ton of points. This 49ers defense is just so shorthanded. And, the Bears were moving the ball up and down the field against them, and then the Seahawks, they ran the ball all over the Niners. They should have put more points on the board. They left some points off the board. And, the Eagles are getting some guys back. I saw Lane Johnson. Looks like he's trending in the right direction. And, Saquon Barkley didn't have a great year. Didn't have as good of a year as he did last year. And you kind of figured that was going to be the case. This is the type of game that I could see the Eagles just wearing down the Niners defense with Saquon Barkley and then Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown in the passing game. I just don't think the Niners match up well there. And on top of that, it doesn't. Right now, Trent Williams and Ricky Pearsall, at least the last time I checked, they weren't practicing. So now, no Trent Williams going up against this Eagles defense, which has been good all year for the most part. I think that's going to be a problem for Brock Purdy. And we saw how Brock Purdy struggled against the Seahawks last week. I think he's going to struggle here, and especially being on the road too. Not to say I don't think the Niners have a chance. This is not the same 49ers team that we've seen in the make the postseason, other than last year. They've had better teams. They're missing key guys. They're missing Nick Bosa. They're missing Fred Warner. They're going to be missing Trent Williams potentially and Ricky Pearsall. It's going to be tough. Now that's not to say that the Eagles' offense continues to struggle and the Niners hang around and they somehow find a way to squeak out a win and pull off an upset, but I just don't see it. I think the Eagles win this game. They rely on their running game, play good defense, maybe force some turnovers. Jalen Hurts, play some good ball in this game, and they pull off the win here, and they move on. But credit to the Niners. I mean, I think with all the injuries, you didn't expect them to get this far, but hey, give them credit. Kyle Shanahan, like I said, deserves Coach of the Year. I didn't even bring up Christian McCaffrey. He's an X factor in this game. He's an X factor in this game. They're gonna have to get him the ball a ton of times. So he can be more impactful. Wasn't really impactful last week against the Seahawks, and he let a ball go through his hands that led to an interception. Don't expect that this week. And also George Kittle is a problem as well that the Eagles are going to have to deal with. So but that's kind of where I'm at. I think the Eagles win this game, and the Niners are going to be going home. And then we got the Sunday night game between the Chargers and the Patriots. This is a pretty good game, pretty good matchup. Drake May will be making his playoff debut. Gillette Stadium. I mean, that crowd is going to be going nuts because it's been a while since they hosted a playoff game. And Justin Herbert, he's looking for his first playoff win, as the 7th seed. And he's a little banged up. The offensive line is banged up. And Justin Herbert getting a win here would, get the monkey off his back because, those first 2 playoff games didn't go great in different ways. I don't think it's going to happen here, though. I don't. I just think with the injuries to the offensive line and Herbert being banged up, Patriots defense has been good all year. And then being at home, I gotta lean towards the Patriots in this game. Now the Chargers defense is pretty good, and they could keep it close. But I gotta go with the Pats in this game to move on. But this is gonna be a good game. This is gonna be a good game. This is gonna be a tough game for the Patriots. And a lot of people have kind of looked at them and maybe not take them too seriously because of the soft schedule that they've had as some of the opponents. But I think this is a good team. I think this is a very good team. And Mike Vrabel has done a great job in year 1. Drake May, he's the guy. He's the guy. So that's kind of where I'm at with this game. But it wouldn't surprise me if the Chargers somehow pull off the upset. Again, that's just kind of how it is with this whole playoffs this year. There's just, again, no powerhouse. There is no powerhouse. So, the Chargers with their defense, maybe they force Drake May into some turnovers, get some short fields, give Herbert some good field position, and they cash in, So we will see. But I'm leaning towards the Pats. And then you got the Monday night game. Texans, Steelers. Steelers coming off of that crazy win against the Ravens. Hosting a playoff game, Aaron Rodgers starting in the playoffs once again, going up against the number 1 defense in the league. C.J. Stroud, a couple of playoff wins under his belt. Steelers get DK Metcalf back. This game is going to be really tough. Now, like I said in the previous show, the Texans run a different kind of offense, okay? They're not going to ground and pound and wear you down with their running game. They're not. C.J. Stroud, he's got a big arm. He's not going to run with it a ton like Lamar Jackson would, even though, again, Lamar didn't run with it a ton in the Week 18 matchup. But he's got a big arm. The receivers that he has at his disposal, Nico Collins and Jaden Higgins, these guys, they're going to be a problem. And the Steelers are coming in relatively healthy. So they got some stuff they got to clean up. You can't have guys running wide open, and especially if they go down double digits, the Steelers, with that defense, I think the game's going to be over. Even though they went down 10-0 against the Ravens, but this is the number 1 defense you're going up against. Now, Riley Leonard had a pretty good performance against them last week. Look, if this offensive line gives Aaron Rodgers time, Aaron Rodgers has played great down the stretch. He protects the football. The Steelers, they got a chance. They have a chance in this game. And obviously the Steelers' defense, they're a defense that could force turnovers. So C.J. Stroud could turn the ball over. They can get after him. Highsmith, T.J. Watt, Herbig, those guys, they could definitely do that. It's been quite some time since the Steelers have won a playoff game, but it's on Monday night, and they always win on Monday night pretty much at home with Mike Tomlin as the head coach. I think the Steelers survive for at least one more week. It is going to be a tough, grinded out game. Rodgers is going to have to get rid of the ball quickly at times because of this pass rush with Will Anderson Jr. and Danielle Hunter. But I think the Steelers find a way, and getting DK Metcalf back is huge. I mean, the offense has looked a lot different since they added the veteran receivers, Adam Thielen and Valdez-Scantling. And Calvin Austin being back was huge, especially last week. Pat Freiermuth making plays. Get him the ball more, please. So I'm gonna take the Steelers to move on and at least survive another week. So, with how my picks went for Wild Card Weekend, so the bracket will be set up. Packers will be going on the road to take on the Seahawks. And then the Eagles and the Rams will match up against each other like last year in the divisional round. And then on the other side, the Steelers will be taking on the Patriots. They matched up earlier this year. And the Bills will be taking on the Broncos. So we'll start from the NFC and then we'll go to the AFC. So, Packers-Seahawks. So the Packers, last time they played the Seahawks in the playoff game, we remember what happened. They could not recover an onside kick, and the Seahawks pulled off a miraculous comeback and went to the Super Bowl. It's a lot different now. Completely different teams. And I almost want to take the Packers in an upset, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to take the Seahawks. The rest of the team, they're at home. The 12s are going to be going nuts. Love the Seahawks defense. Sam Darnold has played really well this year. And there's been a couple of games where, he struggled. But the Seahawks have a very good team. They have a very good team, very good defense. They're going to wear down the Packers with their running game. Jackson Smith and Jigba, who's going to cover him on the Packers defense? That's going to be a problem. And then for the Packers offense, going up against that Seahawks defense, I think Jordan Love could potentially struggle there. I mean, the Packers went into Seattle last year on Sunday Night Football, and Jordan Love played really well, but it's a different year now. So, yeah, I'm gonna take Seattle to win and get to the NFC Championship game. And then the Rams-Eagles matchup. The Rams, they're 0-3 in their last 3 meetings, including the postseason. Saquon Barkley ran all over them last year, both in the regular season and in the playoffs. The Rams looked like they were going to cruise to an easy victory earlier this year, and then the Eagles came back and won. I think the Rams get it done this time, though. I think fourth time's a charm. They get it done this time. This defense gets after Jalen Hurts, and they got after him last year. Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams, they do just enough offensively to squeak by the Eagles and get to the NFC Championship game, which will set up a rematch of the Rams-Seahawks rivalry, or whatever you want to call it. Their grudge match. That's what I should have said. Their grudge match. So that'll be their third meeting. So that's my championship game, is Seattle versus the Rams. And then over on the AFC side, Patriots-Steelers, if that's how it shapes out to be. That's how I have it shaped out in my bracket. Look, the Patriots should have won that game. They just kept fumbling the football. The Steelers got by, but this is a different Patriots team than what we saw earlier in the season. So I think this is where the Steelers' season comes to an end, is in the divisional round, if they do move on. And could this be it for Aaron Rodgers if that does happen? So I'm going to lean towards the Patriots in that game. So the Patriots are in the NFC Championship game. Then you got the Bills and the Broncos. Now, these two teams played each other last year in the playoffs. Broncos scored a touchdown right away. Bo Nix to Troy Franklin, and then they didn't score again. And the Bills dominated that contest. But now it's different teams. Different teams. Josh Allen going up against this defense. Denver is a tough place to play. Tough place to play. And their offense has struggled at times this year. But, in the fourth quarter, they've turned it up. They've turned it up, and Bo Nix made plays. And, they finished 14-3 on the season. But I'm going to go with the playoff experience. I'm going to go with Josh Allen and the Bills to find a way to get a win in Denver and move on to the AFC Championship game. So, you got 2 grudge matches in the championship games. So on the NFC side, you have the Seahawks and the Rams, and then the Bills and the Pats. Two very good games. And you had potential game of the year candidates. From that Thursday night with the Rams and Seahawks, and then the Bills pulling off of that comeback at Gillette. They have two pretty good games this year between the Bills and the Pats. The Patriots upsetting them in Buffalo, and then the Bills pulling off that 21-0 comeback at Gillette. So, look, I have the Rams going to the Super Bowl. I think, they should have won that game in Seattle. A couple of fluky plays. Although, again, I'll give Seattle credit. They won the game. Sam Darnold played really well in the fourth quarter and overtime. I'm gonna go with the Rams, though, to get the win and get back to the Super Bowl. And then on the AFC side, this is going to be a very tough pick. But like I said, I'm going with the Bills to get to the Super Bowl, finally, with Josh Allen, to take on the Rams. And they played a very good game last year, the Rams and the Bills. So now, who am I going to take? Take the Rams. Take the Rams to win it all. Like I said, that was my pick earlier this year. I'm sticking with it. And that will, unfortunately, stink for Bills fans because then they'd have to see their team lose yet another Super Bowl. But that's kind of where I'm at. So those are my picks for the NFL playoffs. Let me know what you guys think about my picks. What are your picks? How do you see the playoffs unfolding? Again, this is an interesting year. Like I said, it's wide open. There's not a clear-cut favorite. But it's amazing, looking at the AFC and seeing Denver and New England at the 1 and 2, and you're thinking, and I've said this like a few times already, but it's like, oh, it's like Peyton and Brady playing again. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It all starts Saturday at 4:30 on Fox. I believe that's a Joe Davis, Greg Olsen vehicle. So get ready for that. But those are my picks. Let me know what your picks are. As always, everybody, make sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the video, to the channel. Make sure to follow us on the social media platforms in the description below. And wherever you get your podcasts, you can follow us as well. Just look up Infinite Sports and you'll find us there. And until next time, everybody, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, signing off. Have a good one. I'll talk to you guys next time. Take care.